just to be clear, I'm only interested in listening to myself described with words that I'm feeling in my entire body. In other words, I'm not interested in just intellectually examining this. I'm trying to examine it with words as I experience it in my body. Just to be clear. And it's an expansive state of consciousness, a savant state of consciousness. You know. There's a homeostasis here. There's a balance point where you can kind of rest in the middle of an infinite possibilities and just feel comfortable in this body. There's that equilibrium that's been somewhat established. And if you're going to make the choice to, in a sense, create your own field here of reflective intelligence, if you're going to take the time to do that, this is what Kundalini Yoga is all about. You set your yogic form in the midst of this field of consciousness, and it's terrific, you understand. You set your consciousness in the midst of that immensity of energy in a stable place, gyroscopically kind of anchored in this biological human form. And that's what it looks like from that perspective. And if you can hold an image, your attention span, right? What is that, you know? Well, you can train it with your breath. You can train it with your diaphragm. It gives you something to balance the biological, psychological point of this consciousness together. It creates reality, creates potency. Back to the breath. Back to the balance point. At this point, I always go in and check my solar plexus, pull it back up and under, just confirm it, tie the body part of this into it. Just to confirm it, just to remember, because it's so easy to kind of just nice to hang out in my heart. But I remember to bring the body back into it. So I set that right up under the sternum. Pull it, you catch it, and it kind of locks in. Feels like. The lower triangle stabilized. And from the heart center, it seems like I don't know what else would cause this form of communication to myself if it wasn't from that at least perspective intelligence of the heart. That this might be helpful. This might be a way to reprogram how perspective, our intelligence, we could set in a stable place in our own biology, which is yoga, of course, but that's a way of thinking of it. And it is possible. You just have to pay attention to a form as a discipline. And you synchronize your breath. You start to be aware of the heartbeat, of the flow of energy in your body. And you kind of balance that out naturally. You listen to it. You pay attention to your own form. Because again, you have to be able to love yourself. Whatever conditioned mind created this whole situation, biological, genetically formed, it's you. So you take that responsibility and say, okay, how can this form be fulfilled in a form of radiant consciousness, which you feel it yourself to be? How could this manifest? What would it look like? What would it feel like? And again, back to this original thing, it has to feel. I have to have that. It has to feel like to me. It can't just be an intellectual concept. I have to, as I'm talking to this, I have to actually allow myself to feel the possibility that, and go into it as I'm talking to you. And that's part of this experience. Kira and I used to talk about this, how we could go through these intense meditations together, and then by the time we try to bring it back into some kind of coherent intellectual, way of speaking about it, the essence was lost. So was it possible to, as I'm going through these kriyas with myself, to try to explain to myself and to everyone else that might be interested, what this could feel like, what it might feel like, and what it does feel like, and I'm allowing myself to feel it on a biological, psychological level. I give myself the freedom of that expression. All right, this is getting long. I'll try to keep up with this.